Can you share, actually, like the most craziest negative entity experience that you've had? And how did that affect your life? And how did you get out of it?
Well, I'll talk about one that was not particularly crazy, but I will often be battling these entities because once you kind of start picking a fight with them, then they'll kind of keep coming at you. So
really,
yeah, that's the issue.
Do they call the boss? It's like, hey,
well,
my manager.
Say if you kill a minion, then the managers get called in, and if you kill the manager, the CEO gets called in. Kill the CEO, then you get the president, you know, and
who is the president of this negative entity?
I'm talking
realm?
about the levels of hierarchy until you reach the higher levels, and they get really big, like they're as big as a house. Some of these entities, and they really look quite big and scary, and they actually make me dry retch sometimes because they're quite dripping in kind of malevolence and sickliness. Yeah,
it has a palpable feel, that pure evil, in a sense.
Yeah, it's quite interesting talking about what evil is, or some of these entities, some of them almost seem like manufactured, you know, like someone's created them.
Well, I kind of like the orthodox view of evil, which is like it's a privation of good, right? Because evil can't exist if there wasn't something good to begin with. It's sort of like, think of a virus. Like, how could a virus exist if there wasn't an organism to attach itself to? Or like a crack in the glass. That crack couldn't exist if there wasn't for the glass. And it's the sort of same thing with good and evil. Evil is like a privation of good. It's not necessarily like this, you know, 50-50 good versus evil sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because you can see this in your own life. Like, is your life really like 50% good and 50% evil, and the balance always has to reach that? It's like, nah, you can reach much more good and minimize that sort of shadow stuff. But that's just a thought. I thought it was like an interesting kind of theology built on it. I was like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense to me in a sense. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't understand a lot of what I see. I only just see it, and there's no one necessarily telling me about everything, all the details of what I'm seeing. So it takes a lot to kind of interpret it, and so you don't necessarily get the full picture. And how I see these entities is I'm often fighting them through talking, through making quite a high-pitched, loud sound that works like a bullet that kills them. And
what kind of high pitch? Like a whistle or I
do the demo. Alright, you ready?
Alright.
So if they're really coming at you like a freight train, you're going to need to do the machine gun talking, which is like this.
Whoa.
Because before I got that sorted out, I would get overcome, and then it would be really bad, because when they take you over, you're essentially losing your mind, you're losing your power, and you're becoming mentally ill, going into a kind of a tailspin.
And so, in terms of, because we talked about like protecting yourself during the ceremony, like if you get attacked or whatever, what happens if you have something attached afterwards? Like, how do you know, like, what are the things that to notice for, like, if you are, like, I don't know.
I think that's really tricky. I think that there should be more people who are practicing helping people to deal with these sort of attachments, and I don't think there are enough people who are doing this work. You know, I've got my ear to the ground, and there are some people who are helping people. I think, yeah, certainly it's possible to pick up some pick up some passengers on different levels. There's many different layers and levels, and some of it's more subtle as well. That it might not be you just got a monkey on your back or whatever. It might be a kind of some part of your auric field is kind of synchronized perhaps with some layers or levels of reality. That's how it seems at times. So at that point, when you're feeling your psyche is a bit of a freeway, and there's all this like traffic and all these crazy Star Wars creatures zooming past you, that's when you know to give it a good break.
You've gone too far.
Yeah, you've done a bit much.
Wow. And what do you say to people who say that all this spiritual entity stuff, like it's all just a projection of your shadow, it's all psychological, it's all in your mind, placebo, none of it's real?
I've never met any of these people who have any extensive experience with psychedelics. None of the people who believe that it's all just a projection of the mind or of the brain. In all the time I've been around the psychedelic scene, there's maybe 2 people I've met who have extensive experience with psychedelic. All the people who have extensive experience, they all understand how it really is. So it's not really a valid perspective. I have to say that. It's not a valid... It's like, you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't done enough. Or you're so stuck in your mental frameworks and you're so stuck in your dogma that no matter what happens to you, you might experience all these alien dimensions and crazy stuff that's like... There's no logical, rational way to explain it. You're like, no, it's just my brain and my mind is doing this, and they're communicating with some higher evolved being. No, you're just my brain.
Yeah, it's
like, and then the alien being is like, it just doesn't skip a beat, just keeps communicating in
get him out
like,
of here.
Bizarre alien languages. So, it's a kind of state of mental illness. Yeah, it's basically being out of alignment with reality is mental illness. So believing that there is no ecology of beingness is being out of alignment with reality, and therefore is a mental illness. That's how I would say it.
Well, because they're only looking at it from like one plane, like the human plane. There's nothing... Well, because metaphysically it makes no sense for it to end in the human mental realm, It's got to go beyond...
Yeah.
Where's the origin point,
I think that in even a few decades, I think we are going to experience a kind of paradigm shift.
Absolutely.
In the next few decades.
And
we're not...
I'm betting on it.
Yeah, the people who believe, it's all just the mind and the brain. There's nowhere to go with that. It's nonsensical. Yeah. It's actually completely illogical, and there's nowhere to go with it, and it's not leading to any kind of evolution or greater understanding of reality. The greater understanding of reality lies in understanding that reality is very great and expansive and big, and there's many different levels of beingness and existence and consciousness and sentience within it that we can experience.
And it goes even beyond that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
at our current level of understanding. I do believe that we're going to look back on our current psychological model and look at ourselves as barbarians. Oh my god, we were absolutely crazy. It's like how we look back on how we used to do lobotomies. I'm sure they still do it in some places, but whatever. Go back further, whatever time period you look at as crazy. That's what we're going to look at these days.
Yeah, it's like the guy who recommended that people start washing their hands before they do surgery. Crazy, you're crazy, man!
Right, there's invisible
germs in the hand. What are you talking about?
Right, there's this invisible beings living everywhere.
What little monsters?
Get him out of here. Get this crazy. Get this guy a straight jacket. That's what they're. Yeah. So the same sort of pattern is repeating itself right now with people talking about kind of, the psychic, more spiritual stuff.
Yeah, I think that just saying someone's crazy or it's not really good enough.
Nah.
I think that there is mental illness, but I consider mental illness to be a lot of it caused by possession by these malefic beings.
Well, what I think even in scripture it says the like the war isn't in the flesh, you know, it's like the spiritual dimension, it's principalities. That's like where the spiritual war takes place.
Yeah, right.
And everyone's kind of focusing on like the physical stuff, when there's like what's beyond that, what's actually controlling this.
What scripture is that?
In the Bible, I think Old Testament. I think it cliches. I don't know. I'm not one of those people who can be like John 34, it's passage 12. Like, I'm actually super impressed with those people. I'm like, how do you remember that? That's crazy. I just go, somewhere in the Bible I remember that. That our war, that the war between the war is basically against principalities and higher beings in the the heavenly realms. It's not flesh and bones. So it seems like you resonate with that saying. So they knew all this stuff. That's what's like so crazy in a sense. Like cultures have known this. Not even just all religions, right? Like Buddhism, Christianity, and Hinduism, and all these.
Well, also
primitive.
There's
cultures.
a lot to be said for that people in the Middle East were taking the acacia with Syrian root orally as well.
Oh, really?
There's a lot to be said for that perspective.
Wow.
Yep. We just don't have any solid evidence for it, but we know there are acacias with DMT in them in the Middle East, and we know that there's lots of Syrian rue growing in the Middle East, and you make a tea with the acacia and you have the Syrian rue, and it's very potent. And I have heard of people from ancient traditions taking some of this tea. I've heard of people making tea from some of these acacias and serving them in Europe as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's getting around.
Yeah. It's all very underground.
That mycelium network is just expanding.